Usually, a vehicle assembly process consists in four phases, starting in press shop, body shop, paint shop, and general assembly. Uh, so, this computer vision system is implemented in general assembly, but it can be adopted anywhere. Yeah? Once the quality inspection is crucial for automakers and is a part of the system to ensure a defect-free product. So, what's the challenge? Yeah, as you know, the quality system is crucial to automakers, and uh, uh, the traditional quality inspection is human-based. So uh, we have a quality inspection, manual quality inspection, and we have a good opportunity for it. Yeah, because a manual inspection is subjective in the quality criteria, time consuming, labor costly, and it is an inefficient process. So, what the solution? The solution proposed in this project is according this actor and team. Chou Shen is the name. The adoption of new technology that employ automated system for product inspection can be considered an excellent alternative to improve the quality and productivity as well. In terms of the related works, Young stand out two uh, image pre-processing techniques, histogram equalization and CLARI to verify weld spot using in the machine vision. Werda et al. Present an innovative method to train the AI artificial intelligence model using synthetic data. Demonstrate its potential to reduce both time and cost. Tang et al. Highlight two deep learning architecture, YOLO and RCNN, as a critical role of computer vision in the industrial application for detecting defects to improve the quality control in diverse manufacturing sectors. Uh, the methodology section starts with data data acquisition, development, because it's a very important to capture this small squirrel in the wheel boxes. Okay, the system is composed by four cameras, two cameras on the right of the on the right side, right hand of the vehicle, and two cameras on the left side, left hand of the vehicle. One camera focuses on the front face, and another camera focuses on the rear face. So, as you can see here, the squirrel is in difficult access, in difficult visibility. So, how can I get the high performance to check this small squirrel using a computer vision system? Well, as you know, a deep learning architecture depends on a large dataset development. In this dataset consists in synthetic images and real images. The synthetic images was generated from CAD models, and we use the Blender to add texture, color, and adjust the lighting and sharpness to realistic images. And we use the Python and PyTorch to integrate all these programs. We have here, I bring two images, synthetic image and real image, to compare one each other. Yeah? But the focus on here is to highlight the screw box, the screw in this red cycle. Okay? Synthetic imaging and real images. Relate the image pre-processing techniques. As I said, uh, we use the two techniques, but this image pre-processing is very important in computer vision system in order to prepare raw images and ensure better results for the next steps, like filters, image extraction, image segmentation, and image classification, so on. And very important to solve or minimize inference-related issues like noisy and lack of image representation. And in this project, we use it or we tested two image preprocess techniques, CLACI and histogram equalization, to improve the image quality. Here we have three images, one image without technique, another using CLACI, and another using the histogram equalization. Uh, in terms of the AI deep learning development, YOLO, you only look once, these are acronyms, stand out among single stage detectors due to simplicity, high accuracy, and it's bring a fast inference speed. Yeah? YOLO version 8 was used in this project with 75 neural layers and 96 pixels in terms of the input image size. The next three slides, I'm going to show you the results. The results that I'm going to present, we consider performance metric, accuracy, precision, and recall. In image preprocess techniques, we have the results just using the original image. We have it in terms of the accuracy, 89%, 9% precision, and 94% in recall. Using the CLACI, we increase a lot the accuracy, 92%, precision, 93%, and recall, 97%. So, using the CLACI, you can see good improvement in comparison to original imaging. But look that when we use the histogram equalization, the accuracy we achieve 94%, precision 94%, and recall 98%. So histogram equalization has favorable improvement in contrast and sharpness better than CLACI. Okay. Comparison deep learning to three version YOLO, YOLO version 5 and YOLO version 8 and YOLO version 10. We use it, as I said, I use the YOLO version 8, but we tested earlier version and later version. So let's see the results. YOLO version 8 outperformed both YOLO version 5 and YOLO version 10 in all metrics. We consider before we follow the YOLO version 8, it makes sense to test earlier version and later version. So this is the results that allow to follow the application. Finally, in terms of the confusion matrices, we have predicted image, annotated image. Our data set considered much more 2,000 images. Yeah, the AI algorithms overall performance results in 92% accuracy, 93% precision, and 99% recall. In terms of discussion, I would like to highlight some abilities. AI-powered computer vision system capable of achieving 92% accuracy. Histogram equalization outperformance Clarke in squirrel detection task. Artificial intelligence model demonstrate outstanding results, more than 90% versus 71% for visual inspection. Synthetic data played a pivotal role in accelerating artificial intelligence model training, and YOLO version 8 algorithm present the best performance compared to the other YOLO version. Okay? So AI-driven solution for the manufacturing industry if you want to innovate, if you want to concern regarding the quality. My final consideration that is AI-based vision system contributes to manufacturing quality control anywhere, especially in the automotive industry. Particularly, I'm an innovation enthusiast and quality defender. When we look at the quality inspection, when I look the vision system, we can see the AI solution applied in this application. Okay? Automate solution replacing manual inspection may improve product quality, optimizing efficiency and reliability in manufacturing. As you know, the our the traditional inspection is manual, is not there is a low confidence level, so you can, if you want to improve the quality inspection, automate solution is the technology for that. Okay? As accuracy and consistency are critical in the automotive industry, can help detect defect and complex assemblies. As you could see, in that case, small squirrel in difficult access, in difficult visibility. Okay? In the context of Industry 4.0, deep learning integrate with computer vision have proven reliable for reducing cost, saving time, and increasing the operational efficiency. Okay? In terms of the future works, I bring two point of view. In academic vision, extend the work to other objects with different format, size, color, and texture assembled in the vehicle in the move line. Example, emblems, wheels, door handles, sensors of camera, etc. We understand that we have other applications, we have a lot of challenges, a lot of investigation that we can explore in the future works using the same concept, the same theory. Okay? In terms of the application, the future works, this technology can be spread out the technology in other countries, in other regions, using the deep learning-based computer vision system to improve the quality, to improve the cost, saving costs, and operational efficiency as well. Okay, so this was my last slide. I would like to say thank you for here and in the connecting, in the call. Before to open the question, I would like special thanks for my research advisor, teacher Regina. He is here. Carlos Gurjão is not here, but support a lot. And my wife, Fernanda Denklibório, she's here. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. And is there anyone in the room who has a question? Room, so I can see if
no, I think no.
Okay, no question. Okay, so we can move on the second presentation, right? By the authors Paulo Del Bem and Lopez de Souza. Sorry for the pronunciation of your surnames. I'm sorry if I make some mistakes. The contribution of the authors explores the impact of different distance measure on time series anomaly detection in software testing. So I left the floor to the presenter. Remember, you have 15 minutes for the presentation, and then 5 if you have some questions.
Is all done now?
I can share the.
All the screen?
Yeah.
All the screen. Okay. Let's see. Which one? They show all the screen.
All the script, okay. So
Okay.
okay.
Oh, we have to go. Okay. It's yours.
Yeah, no problem. You can use it.
I will take it. Thanks. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Polo, and I'm going to present my article that is called Impact of Distance in an Anomaly Detection Context for Time Series in Software Testing. Well, my name is Kevin Polo. The other authors of the article, they are my professors, Alexander Daudet and Paulo Sousa. So to start with the presentation, first I would say the, the content. I will start with the context. Next, I will introduce the problem. And then I will say about the proposed solution in the article, what were the results, and the conclusions of the work done in the article. So, well, what is the context? In any case of problem, you may have, for example, one version that is for to say one test or if you reference, and then you have another kind of data that may change or not. So, for example, from detection, you have a normal behavior, and then you change something. Healthcare, for example, you have a very good, for example, heart rate, and then you change energy consumption, or in my article, system application, the behavior or usage of system resources. So, well, we as humans can detect, for example, that these time zeros had one behavior or one distribution, and then after that, after one change in systems, you may notice that there's a change. But how can we detect this automatically? Well, in this article, we use an heuristic where we use anomaly. We treat this problem as an anomaly detection problem using unsupervised learning. So, what is a problem with this in this context of this solution? Well, we are using an automatic solution, an automatic system to detect this change. But to compare something to other something, we have to define which distance or how do we compare them. In the article we noticed that there were a lot of distances in the literature. So well, it's not very clear how to differentiate to measure the difference between them. For example, some distances may have, for example, a scale very low or very large magnitudes, and others do not comply with triangle inequality and other problems. And these problems at the start of our analysis or definition may have impact in the final solution. For example, erratic anomaly detection, or even incompatibility with another technique. For example, when you do not comply triangular inequality. So, well, what were the approach we use in our experiment? As I said, the problem is mainly anomaly detection, but we use a assist or context, a problem, a real world problem. As I said, we can use, for example, system applications. And we have, for example, a system that is very well tested, and another new solution, a new version of a system that could be one or maybe with a both. When there is a bug, when we have these two versions, we monitor the system, and then we may detect a change in the behavior of the system. If there is a change, there is an indicator of a possible bug in the system. So how do we detect this automatically? We use another tool in the literature that is dummy code that is composed by three stages. First, and you construct a distance matrix. You compare all the data in your data set, and you construct a full distance matrix, a full graph. Then you use another technique that in this project we use neighbor joining that reduce your full graph to a reduced graph that is a phylogenetic tree. And after that, in this tree we detect communities. Which technique we use in this project? Fast Newton. These three stages compose the whole of our profile anomaly detection. So in this project, we test the first stage. What happens if we change what kind of distances or which distances do we find in the literature? Well, uh, first in the definition of the record, the general distance that was used in the project was normalized compression distance. It's a distance that can be used in any kind of data, image, time series, music, files. So it was a very good starting point. But then, as I said, our data is time series. So what distances do we find in the literature very time series? Well, we find dynamic time warping, like implementation of fast Fourier long form, where do we find the signals of the time series, and then we find the distance, the Euclidean distance of these signals. And then, well, we have like our three starting distance, but then we said, why not try the data as binary data, for example, strings. No, we represent the whole time series as a binary, as a data, a string in a file, okay, like a CCV. And then we find the distance using another distance used mostly in strings, lemon state. And then with lemon state, well, why not try having, like having distance? With these distances, we start to monitor our or to get our results. First, as I said, we monitor some applications, but it's impossible to test all the applications in the world. So we try to find five applications that could uh, could cover several scopes or applications in the world. For example, a database. Another application is data streaming. Another application is, well, the next three are a machine learning application where it's speech recognition. The name is voice cloning. The application is an open source project. From games, also Chess Alpha Zeros, another deep learning project in open source. And BERT, that is works with natural language processing. Well, we have this five applications. Okay, so what do we have to do? Well, it's not that one execution of the system, but we try multiple workloads. For example, big data, small data, or medium size of data. And with this monitoring or execution of the system, well, we try to first run or monitor our reference version, a version that is for us the well-tested version. Next, we test a non-faulty version that is the same as the reference version to see if the system is not very for rises a lot of alerts even when there is no change in our system. And we test our fault version. And what is fault version? It's versions that were constructed with bugs uh, represented or already documented by the community. For example, bugs for memory leaks, CPU usage, logs not very good implemented, and other books in the community. So with this context, well, first, what do we have to do? As I said, we are using an unclustered version to detect an anomaly detection project. But how do we test this? Well, first, the question is if our version or our execution is a non-faulty version is, do we expect an anomaly? No. But it was found an anomaly if yes, there is an error. Or in contrast, if there was expected an error in a faulted version and there was not found an anomaly, for example, there could be an error. So in this context, that it was found an anomaly or was expected an anomaly, we try this as a binary classification problem. So in this binary classification problem, we have the true positives, true negatives, and false positive and false negatives. Um, After this binary classification, we find the accuracy. And why the accuracy? Because in the context of in this problem of software testing, we prefer to detect more bugs than not detect them. Okay. And after this analysis, well, we do an analysis of the distances. What were the behavior of the distances, detecting or measuring the difference between a non-faulted another non-faulted behavior log or log or example of our monitoring data. Also faulted against faulted execution, two executions that were faulted, and also the comparison between a faulted execution and a non-faulted execution. So what do we expect? We expect that the analysis between a non-faulted and a non-faulted should be low the distance because they are mostly the same. And the distance between a faulted and another faulted should be also low. But the difference of the distance between two executions, one faulted and another non-faulted, should be higher. So, what were the results in our old data using the 5 distances that were selected in our project? Well, this is all the distribution with biome plot and box plot, but mostly to measure the difference between these five distances, we make the we we calculate the three quartiles, the three most important quartiles in the quartiles in the distributions, where in the first quartile we show, for example, that the Lorentz distance had the highest accuracy. In the second quartile, also the Lorentz distance had the highest accuracy. And finally, in the third quartile, Levenstein had the highest accuracy. But another thing very interesting is that MCD also had it was not in the highest quartile, it was very near, or well, was a second place in this row, in difference to the other distances. So maybe we can kind of understand something from this distribution. So what do we find when we try to go deep in the analysis of each distance. What do we have when we analyze Lorentz-Stein and NCD? First, as I said, when I was expecting low distances between two very well tested executions and two faulted executions, we try to we expect low distance. But when we but when we measure the distance between a faulted and a non-faulted, we expect higher distance. But what do we find? Well, what do we find in Lorentz-Stein? Yes, we have high separability. We can see that there is a separability between the third group and the first two groups. Also, when I said that NCD also had these very good results. And what do we find when we analyze the distances? Yes, also the third group has a very high separability or separability between the first two groups. What is the second thing that I find in this chart? Well, that all the distance of the y-axis is linear. I didn't have to do some kind of transformation, some kind of, of transform of this scale. But what do we do when we analyze fast Fourier transform and dynamic warping? Well, first, yes, we find separability, high separability. Here, 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 and here. We find this separability. And in our time warping also. The third group has a very high separability with the first two groups. But there is a problem. We have, the group had to transform the y-axis in order to present the result. Because, for example, I have 10 to the square and 10 to the 10. So it's very large disparity or very large difference in the difference from one project to another project. And in dynamic warping also happens the same. And I have, for example, some distances that are in the level of 10 to the 1 and another distances that are up to the level of 10 to the 9. So this may impact in the capability of our technique to detect anomalies. And what does happen with having distance? Well, I didn't have to transform the scale, the y scale, so I have linear scale, but in this context, I don't have the separability that was expected. For example, in this place, mostly the three groups are mostly the same, and in another groups, even there is no clear separability in between the third group and the two first group. So this may indicate why coming distance didn't have a very good capability in detecting difference in order to generate better anomaly detection. So what were the conclusions? Well, NCD and Lorentz-Stein had a higher zoom, and something that we find common in them is that they have very high separability and very low change in magnitude. I had to present in linear scale. And dynamic warping and fast Fourier transform had lower zoom. They had a high separability, but high change in magnitude. Some benchmarks and applications showed a lower difference, and other projects showed a higher difference. Hamming had also lower zoom, but it was because it had low separability, which complicated the results in order to detect which were mostly which was an anomaly and which wasn't an anomaly. Well, this is the presentation. This is the final slide. Thank you for your attention. Thankful to the organization, to the CAPES, CMPQ, FAPESP, and ICCSA.
Thank you for your presentation. Is there any question?
No, I think no.
Okay, so we can move to the third presentation. by the authors Tavares, Mendes, Diaz, Albergaria, and Villaka, and Rocha. The contributes investigates the relationship between socioeconomic factors and syphilis incidence in Brazil. So I left the floor to the center.
It's a PDF.
Yeah. Just a second, because it's in Turkish. It's really hard to manage this. Okay.
Another PDF either
This
is
one?
available.
LibreOffice, maybe?
Google. Okay,
Okay, then
but I don't know how to.
switch to full screen. Maybe F11.
11.
No.
No.
Control L.
Control L. Control L.
No. I don't know.
Them.
In Turkish.
It's in Turkish, so
Impossible to.
Control L.
Turco, né?
no, it's not working.
F11 maybe? F10.
No.
Não funcionou?
No. No. No.
Yeah. Three lines.
These three lines? Okay.
Melhor possível. Né?
Okay, you can switch.
Ok.
Maybe this one is working. No. Ah, it's here, okay.
Thank you.
Can you see our screen? You can share?
Yes, I can see.
Sorry, it's possible to open the door. Yes, I asked for the key, but it's not working.
Okay, so thank you. My name is Rodolfo. I'm from the Federal University of Espírito Santo, and I will present this work from Matheus Tavares, which is from Federal University of São João del Rei in Minas Gerais, correlating socioeconomic factors and syphilis incidence case study in Brazil. So syphilis is a bacterial infection which is common in some states in Brazil. It's a public health concern, and it disproportionately affects vulnerable populations and diverse social groups. And social-economic factors, including educational attainment, income levels, and access to healthcare services, and the regional disparities on the municipalities in Brazil plays a critical role in the transmission and incidence of this disease. So it's important to understand how the relationship between these factors affects the incidence of syphilis in Brazil. So we have a lot of methodological approach to be employed in this problem, but these different approaches goes to different results, and we tried to evaluate how the difference between the different methods affects the results to the correlation between those economic and social factors in the syphilis incidence. Okay, so our main goal is to compare the application of different statistical methods in analyzing the correlation between syphilis incidence and socioeconomic factors. We specifically evaluate 6 statistical methods: the person correlation, Spearman correlation, univariate and multivariate linear regression, logarithmic regression, and Poisson regression. We use a data set from some municipalities in the state of Minas Gerais. So, in this data set, we focused on gestational syphilis cases, and the expected contribution of this paper is the standardization of economic epidemiological analysis and the enhance of understanding and the interrelationship between socioeconomic and epidemiological variables. Okay, these are the, I will move fast. The person correlation, the Spearman correlation, univariate, these are the correlation methods, this is important. Regarding the regression models, univariate and multivariate regressions, logarithmic regression, and Poisson regression. Okay, we got this data from the open data portal of Minas Gerais. Okay, and the period was from 2010 and 2023. The social indicators are income, education, health, and health aspects. We get more detail in the next slide about these indicators. Here, some of these are the data set from the gestational syphilis data set we got in this study. We have about 16 or 17 information, and we enriched this data set with socioeconomic features obtained from the open portal of Minas Gerais to include educational, socioeconomic, and income, health and income data. Okay, in this information we have features like notification dates, municipality information, age, sex, race. Okay, and our motivation is here. Understanding these attributes helps in interpreting the relationship between these socioeconomic factors and the syphilis incidence in Minas Gerais. So here, as a methodology, we separated about 8% of the, it's the next slide. Okay, we this is the pre-processing. Okay, we removed missing data. Okay, about 20% of this data. In the end of the pre-processing, we have 18 educational features, 22 health features, and 13 income indicators to be included in the data set of syphilis incidence. Okay, we combine it into a single collection. We use a label encoder, min-max scale, standard scalar techniques for as the pre-processing stage of our data. So the first analysis we did was to evaluate the quality of the regressions. The metrics we used were the mean square error, MSE, and the coefficient of determination, R2, or R squared. Okay, these are common metrics in this this kind of analysis. Here's the definition of the mean square error and the coefficient of determination, R square, okay? And the expected values of R square ranges from 0 to 1. The values closer to 1 indicates that the model explains most of the variability in the data, okay? The second analysis was the correlation between the features and the syphilis incidence, and we got the weights obtained with the correlation and tried and applied the regression, try to go back from the data to the correlation. Weights, okay. Here, in 8% of the data was selected to model the regression. And in Belo, most of the results are similar, and we will discuss them. In Belo Horizonte, the capital of Minas Gerais, we can see that the logarithm, linear multivariate regression, and Poisson regression, it's got the similar behavior. We suspect of overfitting, and we can see that the linear univariate regression got more realistic results here. And this behavior was observed in most of the cities we analyzed. Here in Governador Valadares, we had a different result here. You can see, but we still think about the best, the more realistic results was the linear univariate regression. So the normal, the most common behavior was repeated also in Montes Claros. Okay, as I already said, we expect that the data had some data overfitting in most of the data of our analysis and in the different cities. Here, another hypothesis we can do to explain these results are the multicollinearity, when two or more independent variables in a statistical model are highly correlated, making it difficult to determine the individual impact of each of the dependent variables. It is a common behavior in social indicators. Okay. Then here we did a feature selection, and regarding the health indicators, we selected the 5 most important features to explain the syphilis incidence. These are the 5 most important variables regarding the health data set. Regarding the educational indicators, these are the 5 most important indicators. It's also important to say that in all the scenarios, the 5 main indicators were the same. We focused on Belo Horizonte, the capital, which we had the most of the data in the data set. Okay, the income indicators are here. So these are the 5 indicators that better explain the syphilis incidence in the Belo Horizonte city. Here is the correlation between each of these 5 indicators and the syphilis incidence. We can also see that the linear univariate regression performed the better results with the weights obtained from the correlation methods. Um, this is for the 5 health indicators, the 5 educational indicators. You can see that the best results was obtained from the linear univariate regression. Also for income, some regression models could not achieve a result in some indicators. So these are indicated by a dash, sorry. So here is a figure to explain these results. So this is the school attendance rate for children aged 0 to 3, one of those 5 indicators, versus the predicted class using the linear regression. Here, in the educational data set, the per capita spending on educational activities versus the predicted cases of syphilis. Here, the results of the linear univariate regression here. And our findings. The data exhibits a high complex, predominantly nonlinear relationship. The Spearman correlation identifies strong associations that person correlated failed to detect. Spearman confirmed persons' relationship and expanded the set of identified correlations with greater accuracy. Um, it was the only method to reveal negative correlations. We can see this here. Okay. And finally, the Spearman correlation is the most appropriate method for this data set, providing a more comprehensive and precise understanding of variable relationships. Okay. Okay, this is the most important. The overall results demonstrate that the logarithmic multivariate linear and Poisson regression achieve perfect predictive performance. Okay, this performance indicates overfitting. Okay, in contrast, the univariate linear regression showed significant lower R squared values. And depending on the city, okay, and the mean square error is low, suggesting a more realistic fit, okay. And these findings highlight the importance of carefully evaluating model complexity in addressing potential multiple linearity data leakage to ensure that predictions are generalizable. Okay, so as a conclusion, we aimed to compare different statistical methods between the incidence of gestational syphilis and socioeconomic indicators, health, education, and income. The methodological impact, person correlation exhibited limitations in capturing nonlinear relationships, but Spearman correlation proved to be a robust approach for detecting monophonic association. Univariate regression demonstrates strong explanatory power in modeling socioeconomic indicators. It's very common in social application, social science, applied social science. There are some regional patterns in the data set, and it's important for the government to segment indicators about health, education, and income as a public health policy. And Okay, finally, we also thanks to Unifesp, Federal University of Espírito Santo, Federal University of São João del Rei, FAPS, CNPq, CAPS, and FAPEMI. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions?
Next slide.
Think no, right? So we can go on with the fourth presentation by the authors Herrera, Montes, and Souza. And their contribution explores the use of three-quarter methodology as a reliability tool for IoT systems. So please, you can proceed with your presentation.
Can I go? Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle, and I'll be presenting an architecture for a reliability tool applied to distributed systems. This is our first step towards an actual implementation of our reliability tool that we want to cover some distributed system scenario. So this step is actually more of a theoretical introduction. We will do some analysis in terms of architecture, but no implementation yet. To give some context, software development is a field that is growing in complexity with multidisciplinary ecosystems. So now it's not necessarily enough for us to have software testing techniques in order to detect bugs on our code. There are a lot of features from that particular software that can cause it to have low testability. Some of those features listed here, so like data unpredictability, we might have a scenario in a development environment that is not necessarily representative of what we find in production environments. Also, we can have a production environment with low to no human interaction. So this might be like an IoT system that lives abroad, that lives in a farm and doesn't have that much interaction with humans to conduct some maintenances and other stuff. And also input and output as heavy data streams. So if we have like a heavy data flow for input and output, it might be tricky, it might be expensive to have that simulated in a development environment. And that's where the release engineering comes to try and help us ensure some reliability, ensure some security and longevity into this software. And basically helps us with, it can actually help us with this task of like ensuring that there are no bugs in the code, ensuring that there are no unnecessarily faults on that code. And into this context, I present the three-quarter. It's the same approach that Kevin also mentioned, is a complementary methodology designed for specifically fault forecasting. So we are trying to actually identify traces in our code, identify things that can point to a future failure. Just a quick disclaimer not to confuse this with program static analysis platform. There's another paper with a platform for the same name. They just share the name. They are not the same tool. They are not the same approach. And the idea is that we can detect potential faults in a production software by exploring resource consumption profiles. So we can look at usage of RAM, usage of CPU, and other factors, and see if that software is behaving as we expect or not. This approach, it was validated into a few other experiments that came before, based on a set of Python scripts that had to manually implement the methodology and be adapted from one experiment to another. So the idea to have a reliability tool that can implement this approach is to also be able to reproduce this approach in multiple scenarios and to have a wider adoption. Just a quick overview on how does the three-quarter methodology works. So we can assume that there is a system to be under test, and that system is operating into an execution environment, production environment, receiving inputs of different kinds and providing output as expected. We need to be able to set a baseline, so we can assume that this first version of the SUT is a reference application with no known defects, no known bugs. And since we have some concerns more about like resource consumption, we are not necessarily looking to output data. We're not relying on output data. From this execution environment, we try to collect as many metrics as we can. So RAM usage, CPU usage, and so on. And this data is collected and organized by what we call a monitoring module. This can be at the operational system level or any other level that we have access to. And basically create and find what we call resource consumption profiles, which is like a data stream of collected points in terms of RAM, in terms of CPU, and etc. So from an analysis model that uses the dummy core methodology that Kevin also pointed, we basically organize these consumption profiles into groups, and then we can qualify what are the expected behaviors for that particular tool. So imagine that you have a new version of the SUT, what we call an anomalous SUT that might have a different, an anomaly in the code that can be a bug, a defect, but it was not detected into a development environment. Once we plug this into the three-quarter methodology, the same thing will occur. It will execute. Data will be collected regarding its its resource consumption. From the monitoring module, we'll generate profiles, and from the analysis model, we can group those profiles and detect that there is a new group representing a new behavior that wasn't initially mapped, and therefore there is an anomaly in that software in terms of resource usage. That anomaly might not necessarily be a bug in the code. It might be that between different versions of the SUT, we did implement a new feature, or like we improved the consumption of a particular resource. But that is at least an indication that there are some changes in the behavior. And we do need a tester to see that those changes were expected or not. And if they're not, this can indicate a defect on the code. So as I mentioned, this approach was tested before, was implemented with a set of Python scripts that were constantly adjusted into different scenarios. And the idea to have an actual tool implementing it heavily relies on being able to define an architecture. There are some researches on the scientific literature that say that if we develop a tool with an architecture in mind, we can improve the maintainability and also the life cycle while reducing development time of said tool. So one of the architectures that we found in the literature is called RefTest. It's proposed by Elisa Nakagawa, and it's basically a reference architecture for building software testing tools. The idea behind this work, this paper, was to see if we were able to adapt what the RefTest architecture proposed for our scenario of reliability engineering in order to project our reliability tool. So just to give a quick overview on the architecture, there are what it calls core activities, which basically define the concepts behind software testing. We have test cases, a test artifact, test requirements, and test criteria that lives under the software testing concepts, and we need to basically import those concepts to the world of reliability engineering, and more specifically to the world of our three-quarter approach. So in order to map the three-quarter to the RefTest architecture, we basically try to adapt those concepts into something that we could use and something that would help us to implement the architecture. And some of those are more trivial than others. Like for instance, a test artifact, it could be basically the same concept as we do have versions of the tool being developed and tested. So what we call here is a new version of the application. Just a reminder that the original version is what we call a reference application, and we are assuming it to have no defects. Test cases as I mentioned previously, Tricorder is not necessarily looking to the output data that is generated by the tool. So this also helps whoever is testing that it does not have to know which outputs will the tool generate. But it's very, very important for the person to at least know the tool and understand like what different behaviors can it project, because those behaviors will be identified and it will be categorized by the Tricorder methodology. And those behaviors is what we call under Tricorder as a workload. This can be represented by like input arguments or anything other than any other type of interaction with the tool that would allow it to go from like one execution, one direction or another. So this is the closest we have as a test case. As long as we can define those workloads, we can define different scenarios to test, and therefore we can define test cases. For test criteria and test requirements, as we do not have necessarily a notion of coverage here, it was a little bit trickier to define those concepts. But what we defined as a way to start this development is that the test criteria could be the coverage of originally detected consumption profiles. So if the reference application behaves in like 3 different ways and we generate 3 different profiles, it is expected for the new version of that application to present those 3 types of profile. And for test requirements, the existence of a consumption profile that only appears for the new version. So as the previous figure showed, if there is a new profile, new grouping that only exists in this new version, that's what we're calling like the goal of the test, the thing that we want to identify. As I mentioned, this is more of a theoretical stuff. We are just exercising how to have this architecture planned with those concepts in mind. The proximity of some of those core concepts with the ideas that we have behind Tricorder does point to the versatility of the architecture, but also to the feasibility of adapting it to our scenario. Some auxiliary concepts of ref test are also necessary to be onboarded, such as the layer of security and persistency. Basically, we're talking about how can we have a real tool here developed with the Tricorder approach. So we need to understand and we need to implement concepts such as data persistency. We do need to have a database of some sort connected to all this structure. So we kept that in mind. And from this exercise, we did come up with some generic architectures that might be used to implement the Tricorder approach. So here's an example of a more broad one in which we can still have the monitoring and analysis module, both of them considering an internal implementation of the ref test core concepts. They are isolated one from another because the idea is that we want to monitor resource consumption, RAM consumption, CPU consumption, etc. And we want to isolate them as much as we can in order to avoid other things to be running and to be consuming those resources. So the idea is that each one of those can run on a separated server or container, as long as both of them can interact with some data persistence module, some SQL database, or whatever format we think it's more appropriate for that use case. And as long as both can be triggered by a user interface module that can be like a local front end or also a front end hosted in some cloud that allow a regular tester, a regular user to interact with those modules and see the results. In a more specific scenario that we want to address at some point, since we were talking about distributed systems and low testability features, one quick scenario that comes to mind is IoT systems. And up to a certain point, the methodology, the architecture that we proposed is enough to cover for those systems as well, as long as we add or as long as we are concerned about the communication between like a possible perception layer and the whole architecture as a whole. So in the perception layer, we do have some limited resources, some limited RAM, some limited CPU power that we can use. So it might be necessary to adapt our monitoring model to a simplified monitoring model, but still it's a matter of how can we collect that data, we collect those profiles, and we send them to the rest of our system. It could be like an MQTT server or any other type of communication. Just some conclusions and future work. This work reinforces that a reliability tool based on RefTest is possible and can successfully implement the recorder methodology. It's a first step towards an actual implementation. We are already working on this implementation, and we are trying to expand the scenarios in which we can use this tool. The characterization of possible architectures supported by those concepts of RefTest provide some guidance for this endeavor, and future works are basically aiming to run this reliability tool against real scenarios, including IoT and data streaming applications. Just some quick acknowledgements. This research is being developed and supported by the Institute of Mathematical and Computer Sciences of the University of São Paulo, and it's also helped and supported by CAPS, CNPq, and FAPESP. So thank you for this organization. Thanks everyone. These are the references. Now
Thanks for your presentation. There are any questions?
No.
I suppose not. Okay. So I think we have the last presentation, right? That should belong to the session STIVA, Sustainable Tourism Evaluation, by the authors Guarda, Augusto, Villao, and Lopez. And the authors address the global challenges impacting tourism ecosystem and propose innovative governance strategies to promote sustainability. So I left the floor to them.
Maybe it's not. Yeah. No. No. Maybe it's not. It's not present here.
There is not this contribution is not this session. The authors are not in this session.
No. It's
Do
not
you have
here.
any? Do you have any other authors that need to present? Because by in the program line, I can see
There is another. Yeah.
there is another one.
Yeah, but
They are
maybe it's missing.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yes, there is another one, but in the room is not present any other presenter of this session.
Okay. So maybe they will connect to the session because we have another session with the Stiva in
Okay.
At your 4 p.m. So maybe
We can connect for the other session. Yeah.
yeah.
And if you can stay because we need to evaluate this session.
Okay.
I just share with you one link, but you can close this this session.
So I can close this. And where I need to reconnect.
No, you don't have to close the link. I just do it. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Just to say goodbye to the other presenters.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you to all the presenters. I think that all the contributions were very interesting, and they give a nice, an important contribution to its research file, because I think all the research were belonging in different files. And so it was very interesting to hear your results. and your fundings. And so I'm sorry not to be there, and but thank you so much again, and
Thank you.
hope
Have
to
a
see
time.
you again.
You.
Bye.
Ecco, se mi dai un minuto,
Sì.
faccio chiudere e qui arrivo.
Sì, sì.
Just a quick question. Be able to provide us presenters.
Yeah, but you can ask to Osvaldo.
Oh,
He's not ready, yeah?
Yes, because I was about to ask for a second. My university supported me to go here, and they're asking for both presenter certificate and also attendance
Okay,
certificate.
there is no problem. You just send an email or to me or to Osvaldo or Chiara, and there is no problem.
Oh,
Just explain what you need.
Yeah,
Sure. Then we'll provide it.
sorry. Thank you very much. Well, that's okay. Follow up the season. Bye bye. Thank you.
Vai.
Ok.
Ok, faccio un attimo. Eccomi, allora. Ok, mi senti sempre? Sì.
Sì, sì.
Ok, scusa se sono arrivato un po' tardi, però eravamo il pranzo.
No, 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 non ti preoccupare assolutamente.
Ma ci hanno mandato un link dove dobbiamo, cioè tu devi valutare le presentazioni
Ok.
e dobbiamo indicare appunto chi ha presentato, chi si è presentato e chi no.
Ah, ok, va bene.
Ok?
Il link ce l'hai tu oppure...
Se no io te lo giro qui in chat,
Ok.
così diventa tutto più semplice. Un secondo. Perché purtroppo qui il primo giorno ci hanno dato dei computer in turco che
È difficile
è
gestione,
veramente
immagino.
difficile, soprattutto il primo giorno è quasi impossibile.
Vabbè, possibilmente dopo 2 giorni imparerai il turco.
Sì, domani è già più semplice, però
Poi-
oggi è veramente complesso. Eh, Vabbè, lo puoi fare anche con calma, non c'è l'urgenza di farlo subito ora, è giusto
No,
che
vabbè,
però...
dico, se non al computer ormai lo faccio anche perché ce li ho freschi.
Ti condivido il link qui su Jitsi perché è il modo più semplice per mandarti.
Sì. Quindi per l'autore che non si è presentato, diciamo, per ora metto semplicemente che non è presente, poi
Sì,
dovesse...
però ora metti che non è presente, esatto.
Mm,
Poi nel caso si dovesse presentare o contatta te o contatta appunto l'organizzazione per
sì,
dire voglio recuperare.
anche perché nell'altra sessione non lo vedo, quindi non...
Per oggi ne sono tanti che non si sono presentati, ora non so, o non sono riusciti a connettersi al link o hanno avuto
Ora in
problemi
realtà c'era scritto addirittura in presenza, quindi non...
o non è riuscito ad arrivare qui, non lo so.
Vabbè,
Perché alcuni hanno trovato dei problemi.
può darsi anche che abbiano avvisato l'organizzazione e ancora non ne siete afferrati, ne siamo afferrati.
Non lo so. Allora, me lo mando un attimo qua.
Mhm.
Allora, cosa vuole questa? Quindi ora copia come funziona. Te lo scrivo in chat, te l'ho mandato ora in chat, vedi se riesci.
Ok, aspetta, diamo clic. Ok. Questo è un 2C. Perfetto, va bene, mi è comparsa nella pagina quella di ICSA la pagina delle valutazioni per valutare il paper.
Ok, quindi ora trovi la sessione, quella di... e ci
Si
dovrebbe
trova
essere...
la sessione 2C, 5 contributi. Se clicco su Evaluate Paper, ok. Va bene. Ma quando this paper can be considered for the best paper award, vale per ogni sessione, devo sceglierne una oppure sarà complessiva
Se pensi... no, sarà complessiva,
il
però se
successo?
pensi che qualcuno meriti, la puoi...
Va bene. Allora,
Ok, scusa per il ritardo, Maria.
no, 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 non vi preoccupate assolutamente.
Buona giornata.
Anche a te, ciao, grazie.
Hello. Good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Hi, Antonella.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you. Just a second. Okay.
You are the chair of this session?
Yeah, me and Daniele Mazzoni, which is having a few problem with the connection, so but he's here, just with another laptop, so he's having just problem with the connection. I think 5 minutes and we are ready, if it's okay, or we have to start right now. You tell us.
No. As you prefer.
Simone, io sono qui di nuovo, siamo visti poco fa aiuterò diciamo, a introdurre i primi due paper perché sono presentati da due autori, di due moderatori, quindi non sovrapporre.
Ok, siete tutti virtuali e tutti italiani, ho capito.
Sì, procediamo in italiano quindi, oppure in inglese?
No, in inglese.
Ok,
perché...
perfetto, grazie, perché ho visto lo switch di lingua, quindi ok, perfetto.
No, perché la stanza non è ancora aperta, quindi
okay,
ci sarà la connessione su YouTube e quindi deve essere tutto.
Grazie mille.
No, iniziamo quando preferite voi, me lo dite e io dico che possiamo iniziare.
Ok, 5 minuti se non è un problema.
No, nessun problema.
Grazie mille. Eccoci, il problema tecnico è stato risolto, quindi quando volete noi ci siamo. Forse però adesso...
Ok, yeah, you can start.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Marilina Grasse, researching appraisal and economic evaluation at the University of Enna Core in Italy. And today I have the pleasure of moderating this session together with Antonella Masanotti and Daniele Mazzoni. And before we get started, I'd like to remind you that we have 15 minutes for each presentation, so that at the end of the session we have some time for question and answer eventually. Okay. So let's begin with the first presentation by the authors Magarò, Masanotti, and Tonolo. And the contribution presents user-centered evaluation frameworks and monitoring designed to assess the urban and social impact of major events. Okay, so I can give the floor to the presenter.
Thank you. I will share the screen. Okay. So, good morning. I'm Marina Tonolo, a PhD student at Roma Tre University. And today, alongside Antonella Masanotti, we will present the paper named Towards the User-Centered Ex-Post Evaluation, Monitoring Jobili 2025, written alongside also with Antonio Magaro. This presentation will be divided into three main steps. The first one will be a description of what is the major event and the role of ex-post evaluation and for those events and the integration of user-centered approach into the evaluation system. After we will analyze the Jobili works that are ongoing in Rome, how the funding has been set it, and our monitoring proposal that the monitoring proposal that we developed. And at the end, there will be the conclusion and the further steps of the research. Major events or mega events are large-scale, one-time or recurring event that has the extraordinary international significance. Major events are strategic opportunities for countries and cities, and they enhance international visibility, they attract investments, and promote the infrastructural development of cities. However, they also carry the risk of excessive touristification of the area, contributing to the phenomenon of over-tourism. So on one hand, major events represent an opportunity for urban transformation through investments and giving international visibilities to the cities and to the countries. But on the other hand, they can also pose challenges due to their impact on cities and on the quality of life of residents, leading to higher living costs, dissatisfaction among the locals, and the risk of the touristification of city centers, involving complex decision-making dynamics among the institutional, economic, and social stakeholders. So it is needed to implement an evaluation system that considers the needs and the well-being of users. And a first step could be done by integrating human and user-centered approach into the ex-post evaluation. As an example, the assessment that has been conducted in Matera in 2017, when it has been nominated European Capital of Culture, revealed both a positive impact on tourism and on economy, but at the same time, some dissatisfaction among the locals, especially regarding gentrification of a commercial type of the city center, of course. Systematic ex-post evaluation after major events are very rare, and also when performed, such evaluation cover a time frame of less than 5 years, while long-term evaluation are much more sporadic. This evaluation serves as a tool to verify if the project have generated the expected benefits and to identify which intervention has produced the results that could be above or below the expectation. Specifically when they are paired with an ex-ante evaluation that allow us to understand and to enable a comparison between the forecasts and the actual effects, distinguish the policy determined by external factors. Ex-post evaluation can be framed into two different moments of the exercise phase. There is the results ex-post evaluation that focus on the activities and the outputs shortly after that the event took place, while the second phase is the impact ex-post evaluation that is conducted after some time. And here the goal is the one to assess, to evaluate the direct and the indirect effects, including the long-term outcomes that the event had on the city and on the context where it took place. The evaluation method for ex-post evaluation can be summarized into surveys and interviews that allow us to gather data from the stakeholders and from the population. Econometric models that are useful for statistical analysis, the cost-benefit analysis, and the multi-criteria analysis. This presentation will focus on the application of the latter, as they are capable of taking into account criteria that includes the quantitative and the qualitative dimension. To finally define the criteria that we use for qualitative dimension is fundamental to introduce what is a human-centered design and user-centered design to understand their approach applied into the evaluation system. Both approaches have a common goal, that is shifting the focus of the design and of the evaluation from the product or the process to the needs of the end users, that is, so the tourists or the citizens. While human-centered design takes into account a more holistic view of the well-being of users, concerning the physical, the mental, and emotional needs of the person, user-centered design had more a functionalistic perspective that see the user as a consumer with specific needs and also task-related needs. So the focus is on improving the accessibility and user satisfaction, and that is the kind of approach we will use for our evaluation proposal, since it is more focused on the target we can define. So it's necessary to integrate this approach into the evaluation process to consider the qualitative dimension, so the intangible costs and benefit that a major event produce on its city and on its citizen more than also the city. Since the 70s, user-centered design has evolved across the disciplines, starting in information technologies, where it defined the steps that it has to take, arrives in architecture and urban planning into a design and the evaluation model that involves the users in the whole stages of the development in order to respond to specific needs and also to have a kind of iterative design that could change while the needs of the users changes. Give the first slide.
This paper is aimed to structure a monitoral proposal that is focused, as my colleague just said, on ex post evaluation for major events. And we use the Jubilee Works in Rome as a case study to understand how to evaluate the user satisfaction. According to that, we must say that the Jubilee is not a recent event, of course. It started a long time ago, but the most significant part of the Jubilee, of the modern part of the Jubilee, as far as we know, started in the 1900s. And right now, 125 years later, the Jubilee is not just a Catholic, so a religious event, but is a strategic event for develop cities and urban strategies for also understand how can be done a management for the tourism increasing, which is going on every year more, especially in Rome. According to that, the intervention plan for the Jubilee 2025 in the beginning, since the beginning, started to ensure, the aim was to ensure a right allocation of resources, of course, to have a good reception of the 10 of thousands of millions of billions of pilgrims who are coming to Rome, not just for the Jubilee, but also for Rome itself as a pole for attract tourists. So in the intervention plan, the categories, as you can see in the slide, are divided in two construction works. The first one is the non-deferrable intervention, which means that all the categories inside of this subcategory must be finished inside the year of the Jubilee, because they are needed for the activities of the Jubilee. And the second one, the essential intervention, also can be finished after the Jubilee, because there are material intervention that also stay in the city right before that. And according to the funding, in the beginning, there were only 88 intervention plans for the intervention plan of the Jubilee, but then with a recent revision of the plan, the total funding arrived at more than 4 billion euros for the total funding, of which from the Jubilee is almost 2 billion. It means that the major part of the construction sites and the funding for the Jubilee are concentrated in the center of the capital city. And now the total number of interventions arrived from 88, which were the beginning, to 326 interventions. So the contribution let us trace a path of research that led us to different kinds of research that could be drawn in a pyramidal draw, as you can see in the slide. The basic of the result was the selection of the thematic area that allocated resources in the territory, material resources, and then that let us define a definition for the key aspect for the ex post evaluation, leading us to the assessment of impact, which could be defined as high, medium, and low for every thematic area according to the criteria that we defined, and then the right development of a set of criteria because it was needed for the evaluation metrics. The first finding of the research it led us to a definition of how much and how many construction sites were finished in the Jubilee according to April 2025, and it was seen that in that view the non-referable intervention was going on already a lot still in April, and there was more than 800 million euros of construction sites activated in the center and also in the inner part of the center of Rome, and essential intervention, even if they are the less important according to the Jubilee activities, were majorly finished. The first step of the procedural that we propose in the contribution, and we are of course proposing in the presentation, is divided and understand how many material activities and the construction were made according to the different categories of the intervention plan. As you can see, one of the most intervention under construction and under evaluation in terms of number was the requalification one. For example, in that category, it was also foreseeing the new underground car pathway near to St. Peter's Church. So it's a very important category that collect almost most important activities for the construction work of the Jubilee. According to that, it was very important to understand how this thematic area, but also the subcategory for each thematic area that we just saw, impact on the users inside the city. So we use the BESS, which is a report that shows us how to evaluate the quality of life inside the city according to the users and so the citizens' point of view. And then we selected those which was suitable for our research, and the most important thing doing in this part was compose the user-centered impact metrics by the use of the evaluation according to the impact on the user with high, medium, or low scale of impact on the user on the city. According to that, it was very important to understand which kind of criteria there are under every aspect of the evaluation, and the description of the criteria for every aspect of the evaluation that would be very important for the composition of the ex-post evaluation metrics according to the intervention, the specific and construction work intervention finished after a larger amount of time for the ex-post evaluation.
So, ex-post evaluation of major events even often reveal discrepancies with the ex-ante studies, which tend to overestimate the benefits and underestimate the cost. That's what the so-called mega event syndrome. For the Jubilee 2025, so it's necessary to adopt a user-centered design approach that helps focus on an inclusive urban legacies. So while there is a lack of ex-ante data, the current research outlines a framework trying to monitoring the real impacts, combining qualitative and quantitative methods to assess the to evaluate the investments, focusing much more on the users. Further steps would be applying the monitoring proposal to a section or a sector of the city to verify its functionality and the output results of the Jubilee. So the impact that it has on the city and on the inhabitants, trying to understand the legacy also that such an event as the Jubilee can have on the city and on the citizens of Rome. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And so we can move on the second presentation by the authors Adolfo Baracca, Daniele Mazzoni, and Valeria Tatano, which examines the impact of over-tourism in major Italian cities by analyzing local political strategies, especially the use of hostile architecture. So please, Daniele, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Mariolina. Now I show the presentation. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Daniele Mazzoni from the Department of Architecture at Roma University. Today, I will present of research focused on the evaluating the impacts of over-tourism and hostile architecture in major Italian cities. So this presentation is divided into the three parts. The first part discusses over-tourism and hostile architecture. The second covers the evaluation methodology. And the third presents preliminary results and future directions. So, according to the World Tourism Organization, over-tourism refers to the negative impact of tourism on a destination, affecting both visitors and, more importantly, residents' quality of life. To access its impact on major Italian cities over the past decade, it's essential to consider local political strategies and the urban and social transformations they led to, including the rise of hostile architecture used to limit the public space. The goal of this paper is to assess the impact of over-tourism on tourism choices based on surveys aimed at both tourists and residents. The surveys explore hostile architecture's role in influencing behaviors and perception, providing insight on the changes in cities. Over-tourism has affected many European cities in the last decade, leading to issues such as congestion, rising cost of living, and the loss of local identity. Cities like Venice, Barcelona, Amsterdam are key examples of places grappling with these challenges. For example, Barcelona faced protests from residents displaced by the rising rent and the conservation of rooms into the tourist accommodation. Amsterdam introduced measures such as limiting short-term rentals and promoting less popular areas to distribute tourists more evenly. So the consequences of over-tourism, including environmental degradation, loss of cultural authenticity, infrastructure overload, and increased living cost. This has led to the depopulation of historic centers and the residents move to peripheral areas. Local governments have responded with measures to manage tourist flows and mitigate negative urban impacts. Among the measures taken by the public administration, hostile architecture is used to influence behavior and limit public spaces access, has become a controversial tool. Examples include barriers, walls, and furniture that restrict certain activities. Hostile architecture can either explicitly block access to spaces or subtly make them uncomfortable to use. There are different categories and different intensities of hostile architecture. The first is explicit or overt hostility, and you can see in the image in the left hand the installation of gate, for example in Rome near the Aurelian walls, or bollard placed in the entrance steps in Venice. Second category is implicit or latent hostility, and for example the benches in this image. And finally, strategy of denial. For example, this is a photo for the ceiling on openings near the Sottopasso Pittanelli near of Termini station. So, assessing over-tourism impact is critical to understanding how it affects the city's value and social fabric. A significant trend is the decrease in commercial business and increase in accommodation and food services, particularly in historic centers. For example, bed and breakfast grew by plus 168% in the south and 87% in the center north of Italy, leading to commercial desertification and reducing cities' livability. To evaluate the urban transformations impact on residents' quality of life and the tourist experiences, a survey-based analysis was conducted. Qualitative research techniques provide deeper in sign that traditional quantitative methods, especially for understanding perception of changes. In this study, two questionnaires were developed, one for residents and one for tourists, to assess over-tourism and hostile architecture impacts from both perspectives. In this measure, this is a survey for residents and is divided in 4 sections. The first is the section of a respondent profile, the second, the over-tourism and quality of life, the third is hostile architecture and urban transformation, the last is a suggestion of a resident. And this one is a survey for tourists. It's composed by 3 sections. The first is a respondent profile, to similar the section on the survey of a resident. The second one is over tourism, quality of experience and hostile architecture, and finally the suggestion. So, a total of 245 responses we are received, 117 from residents and 75 from tourists. The responses we are categorized by city. In this case, the cities Rome, Florence, and Venice, to refine the analysis based on the city's size and tourist attractiveness. The first assessment results are focused on the perception of the increase of tourism. Over 80% of residents surveyed noticed a significant increase in tourism. This increase affects their daily lives, including rising rents, changes in commercial services, overcrowded public spaces, and the loss of neighborhood authenticity. The perception of tourism growth varied by location. For example, only 11% of those in Rome's historic center felt a rise in tourism. Policies affecting public space often make cities less accessible. Residents most noticed to removal of benches, installation of barriers, and the restricted access to certain areas, negatively affecting their quality of life. In Florence, for example, 18% of respondents felt these changes had a significant impact. So the tourists visiting Rome, Florence, and Venice responded similar overcrowding perception. For example, 27% of tourists found the city extremely crowded, 51% very crowded, and 42% said overcrowding negatively impacted their visits quality. This showed that overtourism is not just a concern for residents, but also for visitors. So, in conclusion, this research only offers initial reflection. And one alarming conclusion that emerges from the evaluation is the need more effective policies than consider the needs of both tourists and the resident. In fact, 24% of residents in the sample report are considering moving to another area of city. The complexity of the city and the public spaces cannot be addressed solely through prohibitions. So many municipalities are already implementing strategies that focus on decentralizing tourism, promoting the attractiveness of peripheral areas, and pursuing the model of smart cities through the urban regeneration process. There are increasing focus on reviving degraded areas. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I would switch now, and thank you, Mariolina, for the floor. I will switch now for the next presentation, which explore a highly relevant intersection between the IA and sustainable tourism. The paper and the contribution, of course, presented by Mariolina Grasso, Fabrizio Finucci, Giovanna Campa, and Daniele Mazzoni, show us a model that combines traditional stakeholder with evaluation and driven by AI analysis. I'm pleased now to invite the authors of the paper, which is entitled Artificial Intelligence and Sustainable Tourism, an integrated model for impact assessment. And I will give it the floor for the presentation.
Okay, Antonella, thank you very much. I just have some problem sharing my screen. Let's see. Can you see the presentation or you see the windows?
No, we cannot see it.
Unfortunately, it give a message that when I select entire screen, told me that something doesn't work in the permission.
I don't know if maybe we can have a technical assistance.
Let me see the screen. And then if I select Windows, you can see your faces, but not my presentation.
Try to put full window.
I
can. Okay, you're sharing now. I can see my face.
Yes, but you can see the presentation, right?
No, but maybe you should choose the option of full window.
Yes, but if I choose that option, it will give me the message that I have not that I haven't the permission. Condivisione dello schermo fallita. Let's see if I can upload in Google Drive and.
Okay, maybe in the meantime, if it's okay for you, we can switch to the next presentation.
Yes,
So
sorry
we are giving you some time to figure it out the technical issue. Okay, so the next presentation addresses a key challenge in a contemporary urban design, which is how to ensure a public and inclusive space and not to evaluate it. The paper, which is presented by Fabrizio Finucci, Massimo Mariani, and Luca Trulli, present a multi-criteria evaluation model for monitoring the Schuster Park in Rome. I'm pleased now to invite the authors of the paper, which is entitled Inclusive Public Space, Accessibility and Social Inclusion, a multi-criteria modeling for Schuster Park in Rome. I will give the floor now to the authors.
Good evening. Give me one moment, I show you presentation. Good evening, everyone. I'm Luca Trulli, a research fellow at the Department of Architecture, Rome Tre University. Today, I will present a contribution titled Inclusive Public Space, Accessibility, Social Cohesion, a multi-criteria monitoring model for Schuster Park in Rome. This presentation outlines the process of an ongoing design research project within the department, aimed at evaluating the impact of certain qualities of inclusive public space as affected by excessive tourist pressure. The logical definition of public space is currently marked by considerable instability. Numerous elements contribute to characterization of public space. Presently, many approaches recognize aspects such as inclusiveness, accessibility, public ownership, and unrestricted freedom of access as essential. However, none of these elements, either individuality or collectivity, can sufficiently define to a public space is. Other quality further delineate the public nature of space. For instance, a physical space results from a participatory and collective design of management process. Ultimately, public space must also promote social cohesion. Social cohesion is the result of a well-designed space that fosters social interaction and community bonds, generating a sense of belonging. Inclusiveness and accessibility are fundamentally characteristic of public space that aim to encourage social cohesion. In many cases, the public space are affected by tourism flow that may compromise social cohesion. If not addressed through integrated approach, this dynamic tend to undermine the ability of public space to provide service, deliver benefits, and meet to need diverse communities. The lack of integrated management approach, especially in the context of exceptional event or location of historic and artistic value, such Venice, for example, can exacerbate the phenomenon resulting on over-tourism. This phenomenon involves the excessive influx of tourists that exceeded the site's carrying capacity, producing numerous social, environmental, and economic issues. Over-tourism, in this sense, creates a homogeneous impact on tourism, highlighting local communities' effort to preserve their identity and cohesion. As previously mentioned, the presentation aimed to propose an evaluating approach to highlight how excessive tourism pressure can affect to social capacity of public space, using Parco Schuster Park in Rome, as an experimental framework. Using these case studies of the Universal Inclusive Schuster Park, the presentation analyzed the park's unique characteristic and outlined the initial step toward developing a multi-criteria monitoring model. This model seeks to assess the social impact of the park in the context of Jubilee 2025, taking into account the interaction between regular usage and the influx of excessive visitors. The project approach was characterized by the desire to enhance the park's accessibility. In this sense, it is defined as an environmental ability to guarantee independent living for all individuals. In architectural terms, accessibility refers to usability, space, good, and service, meaning they must be identifiable, readable, comprehensible, and independently usable under condition of comfort, safety, including sensory cognitive aspect. Environmental accessibility results from a multidisciplinary, multi-level process involving multiple stakeholders. Inclusive design focuses on individual to resolve the conflict between human and their environment. The accessibility of high-traffic public space must consider both regular user and temporary visitor. Schuster Park is located in Rome in the Ostiense Marconi urban quadrant. Built in 2000 for the Jubilee, the park now serves as an urban hub. The analysis began with a supervisor of the surrounding territory and nearly focal point into quadrants. These quadrants encompass key centrality closely connected to the park. Following the territorial and park subdivision into quadrants, all barriers within and around in the park's pathway were identified and classified. These barriers were categorized according to an alphanumeric code developed by the research team. The identification of a barrier revealed a complex framework of a critical issue related to park and its connection, which then serves as the foundation for the design action. The goal was created to a university inclusive park for people of all age. To archive this, a participatory process was launched with association operating within the park, as well as citizen group who use it. The design action emerged from both the barrier analysis and the participatory process. This action includes to creation a new and safe and inclusive playground, an inclusive path along the park main axis with a skate park for wheelchair user, a sensory path, a new wayfinding system, and a specific element to overcome identified punctual barriers. The new playground, for example, featuring inclusive play equipment, shock-absorbing flooring, and wayfinding system. Located in the same area as the previous playground, the intervention expanded its dimension and made it accessible through new pedestrian connection and paving. The travertine surface of Schuster Park include a water drainage system that, in some case, constitutes a barrier. In alignment with the original design by Francesco Cellini, the research team developed a target solution involving the intersection of recomposed or non-recomposed travertine element. The design of this element was with the goal of not obstructing the natural water flow. After refining the shape of dimension of the module to address the drainage channel, initial prototypes were produced and installed within the park. As seen in the photo on the left, these travertine elements enable all individuals to cross the drainage channel in autonomy and safety. During the visit of the measure of the room to Schuster Park, this element received particular attention, highlighting to the park design has been developed across a multiple spatial scale. The inclusive and universal design of Schuster was driven by the desire to make the space accessible to all type of user. The park, unique nature, as both a public space and a clerical park, grid the design toward multidisciplinarity and multi-scale consideration. It's a park that must respond to the contemporary dynamics of both tourist flow and resident use. All stakeholders with varying timeline and needs engaged a design and assessment process that led to the implementation of a strategy at different scale.
Good afternoon, I'm Fabrizio Finucci, and I'm going now to explain the evaluation method that we propose. First of all, what was the problem? How can we prevent that the different layer of the use of this park can overlap, creating a conflict? Because we still have got the everyday use of the community to who it was dedicated, the inclusive project, but in the same time, we are in the particular years of the year of the Jubilee, where we were expecting an overcrowding due to the over-tourism. And so how can we create an evaluation method that can tell us if these two overlapping flows are going to create conflict, or moreover are going to vanish or nullify all the benefits that the park can give? To elaborate this method, we counted on the multi-criteria evaluation method and to create a monitoring process for the Jubilee year. Why did we choose the multi-criteria? Because they are a kind of perfect tool in order to incorporate the complexity and the interaction between the different and many use of the spaces that the park is going to offer, because this kind of method can support the complexity of the decision making, even because they are, as we know, they are integrating different criteria, because they make possible to read both in the same time the physical and the social phenomena that we can have in the space, and because moreover they can help us to mix and read in different scale and in different method quantitative aspects and qualitative aspects, especially the ones that are based on the perception of the people. So now I'm going to tell the evaluation method that it's based in 7 different steps that I'm going to briefly summarize. The first thing that we did it was to divide the park in 3 different kind of layer, that we divided the area in aerial ambits, like the area of the green or the area of the game parts for the children, linear ambits that are all the paths, the different paths that are the one that leads to the church or the sport paths, and punctual ambits that are the individual elements, for example, like the one of the urban furniture. And we divided the park in these different elements of evaluation. The other steps, the most delicate following steps, is the identification and the selection of criteria and indicators that we wanted to use kind of indicator that were able to integrate, as we said, quantitative and intangible aspects. I can give you just an example of the selected indicator, for example, the saturation index that can measure the relative density in a certain moment, in a certain space, and it's calculated like the number of people in a specific area in a unit of time. And it can say a lot about how much is overcrowded a place. Or, for example, the load capacity of a place, of an ambit. If we can imagine that there is a threshold, and over this threshold, the use of this space or of this path is not going to be enjoyable for the people that is using it, we can count how many times this load capacity is overpassed during a certain period, and that gives us an example about the fact that we cannot use and enjoy the space no longer anymore. Or, for example, another indicator is the deterioration index, that it can be expressed as the percentage of path, element, or area that are damaged compared for the entire element. About the qualitative indicator, of course, we've got the choice among all the tools and instruments that can capture and identify the direct expression of the different user categories, such as the feeling of safety, the space quality, the emotional quality, the symbolic quality of the space. Once that the indicator and the criteria are set, we can build the evaluation matrix that is structured in the way that you can see in the slide. In column, you can see the criteria that are still divided by quantitative and qualitative criteria. And online, we can see the different ambits. And again, the ambits are divided in areal, linear, and punctual ambits. The ones that we fix, the result, it can be a general framework of what is happening in terms of overcrowding and noise on the community about this overcrowded moment. And we can have this general framework that can help us to understand which part are more suffering of this, and about the part which element is going to be under a critical problem, if we've got problem of noise, if we've got problem of the fact that we can't use the space properly. And we can even imagine that among this kind of evaluation, we could fix even the weight among the importance of the different ambits in general group, like all the areal, all the linear, or all the punctual, or we can give an assigned weight to the different criteria in order to the importance of the elements of the evaluation that the community want to express. So this is the result of our general monitoring system that we still didn't start to do. About the conclusion, what do we think that our system can lead us to identify the hierarchy of the most critical area, and this one can help us in a planning phase to redefine the flow or to promote a more strong environmental and social accessibility. The heterogeneity of the criteria can give us the correlation about specific issue, like what's happening when the overcrowding are going to overlap with the noises in the different area. And so this leads us to the understanding of the comparison about the real number of the people with the perception of the people, how much they feel uncomfortable in such a space, because we can have a big amount of people that is spread in a bigger space, and that doesn't give a big result of criticism in terms of perception, or we can have the opposite, few people that create a perception of an overcrowding because they are limiting other feature of the elements. And anyway, we think that a monitor system like this can help us to planning even potential compensatory measure, even in a temporary basis like the Jubilee time. To conclude, we would like to say that we were thinking, as we said, this monitoring system for the Jubilee Park, but a week ago, a report is telling to us that this overcrowding amount of people that they were expecting in Rome actually is not coming. We've got something like 10% less of presence that they were expecting comparing with other Jubilee and with the expectation of the expert in the sector. And moreover, all of this crowd of people, it's a lot more concentrated in the center and close to the Vatican, and not in the other area of the Jubilee as we were expecting. So far we didn't recognize as we can say, an element that can suggest us to apply in this moment the method that we were planning. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I will switch now. I will give the floor back to Mariolina if she was able to solve the technical issue. And we'll go back to the previous author for the presentation entitled Artificial Intelligence, Sustainable Tourism, an Integrated Model for Impact Assessment.
Okay, let's try again. Captain's always the same message of
Maybe if it could be helpful to put it in the chat, the file, and I would.
Yes,
I can try to share, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I can support you somehow in this way.
Yes, I will share in the chat so that someone of you can share the screen for me. I think that is the best and the rapid solution.
Sorry, can you hear me?
I can send you an email because I think I can send the file.
Because I can't hear anything.
Sorry, we cannot hear you very well.
There is some problem with the sharing of the presentation.
Yes.
Yes, I can. I have a problem with the sharing my screen. But now I'm.
Okay, now I can hear you. Sorry, there is a problem with this PC. There is a problem with the sharing of the presentation, Antonella?
Yes, it sent me a message that the sharing is failing. So, but it doesn't tell me why.
Yeah. I just sent her the moderator rights, so try now, maybe. Because it's strange that you can't share your screen.
Yeah, I know, because
I think it's not depend on the Jitsi platform. Maybe some setting on your PC.
Anyway, I'm sending the file to my colleagues so that they can share the screen for me. So in a few minutes.
Okay, so Marioli, you have the problem?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
It's only me.
Okay, let's just send just a second. No.
I can't. I only can share the Chrome sheet, but you will see only now. Wait, now maybe.
Try now.
No, it's a condition of your screen is failing. Miss the permission.
It's strange. Because I can change the.
I can share the
Now we see your screen.
Yes, but you can see this is the only thing that I can share. I can show the rest of the presentation. Daniele, Antonella.
Maria Elena, if you want, I show you a shape. Okay, I show you the presentation, okay?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Condividi. Okay?
Okay, thank you so much, Daniele.
Just
Okay, sorry for the delay, but anyway. And so good afternoon, everyone. And today I'm presenting our research conducted with Professor Finucci, Daniele Mazzoni, and Professor Acampa. And Daniele, you can go to the next, which is titled Artificial Intelligence and Sustainable Tourism, an Integrated Model for Impact Assessment. So we started with a study of the background regarding the tourism recovery post-pandemic. In 2024, marked a significant milestone in tourism recovery, with more than, as you can see from the images, more than 1,200 billion international tourists traveling globally, more than 55% increase from the year before 2023. So Europe alone recorded more than 400 million overnight stays, with countries like Italy, Germany, and Spain leading this growth. So the next slide. And specifically in Italy, here we can see an overview of Italy. We saw in 2024 154 million arrivals, and however, as the images shows, disparity were evident, as for instance, Campania saw a decrease in overnight stays compared to the year before, while Calabria struggled further than an 80% decline. So the next one. In 2013, the European Commission launched the European Tourism Indicator System, the so-called ITIS, consisting of a set of indicators designed to assess the tourism sustainability and to support destination and monitor and measure their performance. So this research aims to define evaluation models that consider these indicators through a weighted system, and specifically to determine the specific weight of each indicator and assess the usefulness of this system. The paper presents the result of a study where the real stakeholder and also artificial intelligence stakeholders were put in comparison. So we obtain the data in two ways, using the traditional models, so the stakeholder consultation, and through this artificial intelligence software interrogation. So the next slide, thank you. And as I mentioned before, our indicator were taken by the ITIS toolkit. I already defined that. Just I want to highlight that they were designed for monitoring and managing tourism impact at the local level, and they include 43 main indicators covering 5 main macro area, which are destination management, economic value, social, cultural, and environmental impact. So perfect. The weighting, this is, as you can see here, the research development, the core of the methodology. So the weighting process of the IT sustainability indicator adopted in this study is based, as I mentioned before, on a participatory approach that combines stakeholder involvement with the use of artificial intelligence. And so at the beginning, the ethics toolkit, of course, were studied, and subsequently, a structured questionnaire was developed consisting of the 43 questions that were, of course, corresponding to the number of ethics indicator. So we have at the second step. Then we created this questionnaire using a Google Form platform, and to each participant was asked to assign a score from 1 to 5 using an ascending importance scale, where 1, of course, was the indicated as the minimal importance, and 5 indicated the maximum importance. And the next phase of the third one was the stakeholder selection. Of course, we decided to involve the most important stakeholders considering the tourism sector, and we divided into 4 main categories. The first one was private tourism operators. The second one, B, was the public tourism bodies and public entity with the competence in tourism. The third category, C, was public or private entity for environmental protection. And the last category, D, were the managing body of, for example, museum, archaeological park, and so on. So, at the same time, we involved also the artificial intelligence software. We use mainly ChatGPT and Gemini by Google, and we trained the artificial intelligence was trained to simulate each stakeholder category, so A, B, C, and D, and replicating their viewpoint and assigning a score to each indicator based on available data at the specific criteria of each sector. This process provided an additional weighting, of course, of the indicators based on objective analysis, of course, mitigating the subjectivity of human assessment. So the data collected, we are now at the step 6, the last one, from both the stakeholder and the artificial intelligence were then analyzed and compared to determine the final weight of each ITIS indicator. Okay, so here we have some survey insights. We engage 100 stakeholders, circa, from the sector I mentioned before. We have a response rate of 65%, circa, and the ranking of the indicators I already mentioned before. We go to an importance scale from 1 to 5, and we have the most of the response were received from the category A, public entities with competence in tourism, and the less number of response were received from the private tourism operator instead. So regarding the results in the next slide, okay, here we have a comparison between the stakeholder category A So we have an overview of the answer given by the real stakeholder and the artificial intelligence. You can see the artificial intelligence on the left and the real and stakeholder on the right of the screen. The data collected show significant differences between the assessment provided by the two categories, the artificial intelligence and the real stakeholders. We are talking about the category A, so private tourism operator. The real stakeholder attributed greater importance to economic indicators and destination management, while generally speaking, environmental and cultural aspect, the indicator regarding that sector were rated with a slightly lower score. This result is consistent with the role, of course, in the sector, which focuses on profitability and efficiency resource management. Regarding the artificial intelligence answer as stakeholder category A, instead assigned a balanced weight to almost all four macro categories of indicator. The one received the most important scores were the environmental aspect and the economic aspect, but generally speaking, the result given by the artificial intelligence was a little bit more homogeneous. So this is the other categories. So in this slide, you can see category B and the next one, C and D. So in the category B, you can see that public tourism authorities placed greater emphasis on destination management and social and cultural aspect, reflecting their responsibility, in ensuring balanced and sustainable tourism growth. The result from the AI again provide a more balanced view, although indicators related to destination management were still considered more relevant than others, as you can notice. Okay, so the next one, we can see category C. Again, here, the real category of stakeholder gives a real few importance to the economic aspects. And again, the result of the artificial intelligence were more, homogeneous, were more standardized, as you can see from the point. They, of course, put more important to the indicators regarding the environmental aspect, but because of the characteristic of this category. So then we have the last one, which is the entities protecting, managing archaeological and archaeological site and museum. Here, the difference, the answer both from the real stakeholder and from AI were quite, balanced, as you can see from the result. From the real stakeholder, it was given a little bit more importance to the destination management. I think that is totally understandable, considering the kind of archaeological sites or museum that they need to manage. So here we can go to the discussion and the conclusion. So in the weighting process of the ETIS indicator has allowed for highlighting the priorities and divergences among the various stakeholders and providing a solid foundation for developing more effective and sustainable tourism policies. Also, the combined use of empirical data and human evaluation, of course, represent an innovative approach to improving tourism governance and promoting more responsible development of tourist destination. Another consideration regards the integration between the judgment of stakeholders and the evaluation provided by the artificial intelligence that has enabled a more comprehensive and multidimensional view of sustainable tourism. Of course, the research is in development, so we are not over with our with the result. We are all already studying, the phenomena. And but what is evident so far is that the stakeholders, when it has to accept somehow the judgment of the artificial intelligence. We don't know how they, if they will accept, the judgment of the artificial intelligence, if they think that it could give an available judgment to be considered. So thank you for your attention, and sorry for this trouble with my sharing screen.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I will now leave the floor to my colleague Daniele Mazzoni.
Thank you, Antonella. We'll continue with the last presentation of this session, entitled Back to the Roots, a Form of Sustainable Tourism, by Giuseppe Sommario, Laura Calcagnini, and Giovanni Baratta. So, Giovanni, you can share the presentation, and you can start when you prefer.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. Let's see. Give me a second for sharing everything. Can you see?
No.
Okay. Now, is it better?
Okay, now yes. Yeah.
Can you see the presentation?
No. I can see the. You can you share the total of screening on the.
Okay. Maybe now it's better.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Can you see? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, good afternoon to everyone. This is the presentation of the paper I had the possibility to write with Professor Sommario and Calcagnini. And the title of the paper is Back to the Roots, a Form of Sustainable Tourism. First of all, I would like to define what is tourism. And in the 1994, the UNWTO, the World Tourism Organization, defined tourism as the activities of people traveling to and staying places outside their usual environment for not more than one consecutive year, for leisure, business, or for other purposes not related to the exercise of a remunerated activity in the place that is visited. The term route tourism, in particular, refers to a form of tourism that is aimed at the descendant of immigrants who return to visit the place where their ancestors once lived. Specifically, it is a type of tourism based on the search for one's family's root and the rediscovery of the ancestral places and the tradition itself. It's more than a mere form of tourism. It is often experienced as a pilgrimage due to the deep emotional involvement that it evokes. Route tourism is therefore a structured tourism offer developed through targeted community communication strategies, and it combines the third sector services as accommodation, food, wine, and guided tours with the opportunity to explore the family history and cultural heritage of Italians living abroad and their descendants that are estimated potential audience of nearly 80 million people. Consider that today Italy has a population of 59 million of people. According to the data that are provided by the ENIT, the Italian Nation Tourist Board, the 30% of routes tourism, the equivalent of about 3 million travelers, is made up of a younger target group aged 25 to 34, the 25.7%, and more mature group aged from 55 to 64 as the 24%. These travelers tend to plan long stays in Italy, averaging 7 days per trip, generating a significant economic impact. That's why we can define as one of the most important opportunity for Italy, the route tourism, because in 2021, route tourism generated over 4.2 billion in the economy for Italy. And in Italy, just 6.6 million visitors arrive in Italy, resulting in 34.4 million overnight stays and an economic impact exceeding the 5 billion. In 2025, the number is expected to approach the 7 million, and by the 2026, it is projected to rise to 7.3 million. Now, I would like to talk about the NRRP, the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, that allowed the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the MAICI, to launch the route tourism call for proposals founded by European Union, the Next Generation EU under the NRRP, with the first mission digitalization, innovation, competitiveness, and culture. Specifically with the third component, tourism and culture 4.0, and the second measure, regeneration of small cultural sites, religious and rural heritage. The call, which received a funding of 2 million euro, aimed to support the training of new professional profiles specialized in the design and promotion of route tourism services in the order to boost youth employment in areas with high unemployment rates, counter depopulation, and promote eco-sustainable form of tourism itself. Positive example of program of route tourism programs are, for example, the Gathering Island, and is one of the first programs related to route tourism that was launched in Ireland. And published in 2013, the program featured a series of events aimed at promoting Irish culture among potential visitors of Irish descent living abroad, estimated at 7 million people, including the 40 million in the United States. The main goals of the project included boosting tourism by increasing overseas visitors, building a long-lasting relationship with the Irish diaspora around the world, and spreading the Irish pride and promoting the country's image and reputation abroad. And I would like to focus for a second to the word diaspora. That is a very, very important word, I think. And the term diaspora comes from the ancient Greek words dia, through, and spero, that it could be translated like to sow. And it literally means to scatter through, like seeds being sown across a different land. It is a global dispersion of a people from their homeland, often maintaining cultural and emotional ties across generation. And I think that that's the main subject that defines route tourism, the desire to discover our past. Another example of route tourism is the Piccolo Festival delle Spartenze, Launched in 2016, created by Giuseppe Sommario, one of the authors of this paper, in Paludi, a village in Calabria, one of the Italian regions most affected by immigration and abandonment. The festival acts as a catalyst event aiming to promote the village and its surrounding area. It seeks to attract members of the diaspora back to the land of their ancestors, strengthening and giving substance to the root tourism. In essence, the event strives to heal the cultural and emotional divide between those who left and those who stayed behind, waiting for the return of the children to their homeland. Since the 76, over 30 million Italians have immigrated from Italy, and today the numbers of people of Italian descent worldwide exceed 80 billion people. The numbers of the Italian immigrants are massive, and that's why another reason, and that is why it could be a great opportunity for Italy. Especially today, according to the data from the Registry of the Italian Residents Abroad, managed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the community of Italians living abroad totals 6.134 million people, most of whom are young adults aged to 18 to 34. And especially the countries with largest community of Italian residents are Argentina, Brazil, Germany, and Switzerland. Around the world, among the region of origins, the most represented are Veneto and Calabria. The largest community of people of Italian descent are found in Brazil, 25 million, Argentina, 22, 23 million, and the United States, approximately 20 million. Among the region of origin, Veneto and Calabria rank the most represented. This is the picture of the celebration of the Calabrian immigrants in Buenos Aires in 2018. In the foreground, at the center, Mario Oliviero, then president of the region Calabria. And it's an event that represented a strong boundary between Italian all around the world. Another thing that I would like to focus on is the villages, because in this presentation, the English term village refers to an historic village with deep emotional and cultural ancestral meaning. In Italian, the translation is with the word borgo. Another right translation in English could be heritage village, for giving the idea of something that is very, very deeply bounded to the histories. And villages, for excellence, are anthropological places. They are made up of narrow alleys, homes, relationship, life, stories, social practices. They are places where inhabitants live alongside their patron saints, their deceits, and their memories, where the sense of place is still deeply, incredibly felt. These are the small inland towns, the ones that belong to what Rossi Doria famously described as the bone of Italy, as opposed to the pulp of the plain and cities. Of particular importance for route tourism is the emotional and familial dimension, of course, which, as Rossi Doria said, concern the attachment to a place where one's ancestors were born and raised, an attachment that is not only personal, but often familial and traditionally rooted in one's origins and sometimes passed down orally from generation to generation. An example of sustainable tourism now, because route tourism is an example of sustainable tourism, as it is focused on the revitalization of the culture of ancestral places through the enjoyment of the local sites and the food, and of course with respect of the surrounding environment. Such practices generated benefits for the community from which routes tourism is originated. And in the end, route journey begin with departure, and to leave, to stay, and to return are deeply interconnected, because departing creates the needs to return, a powerful, unrelenting urge that never leaves those who go. It is a feeling that is nurtured, passed down, until it becomes a route journey. These journeys are made possible because someone or something has remained to wait to preserve the places of an ancient roots. Rediscovering one's root is it a spiritual exercise, an ancient a pilgrimage deep into the soul that transform both heart and mind, both inside and also out. More than moving through space, it is a journey within oneself. This is why route journeys are a form of tourism, but at the same time, they can be an incredibly powerful opportunity for collective rebirth. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Giovanni Baratta. So before ending this session, I would like to ask if there are any questions regarding the contributions. Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank all the authors who participated in the STEVA 2025 call. And I think it was an important moment of reflection on such a topical issue of over-tourism, and which concern many aspects. I think all the contributions gave different insights and had multidisciplinary approaches. This is a fundamental aspect to continue reflecting and researching on this topic that concern all of us. So on behalf of STEVA 2025, thank you to all the participants and all the organizers. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.